multi-modality. Hey there, class 430, something about literary things and multimodality. I am here today drinking a beer because I have to see my family soon, but here, nonetheless, to tell you about my ideas of multimodality and how they can be used to help you and me and everybody. And let's begin. It is going. I did not know that, but part 1, we'll be talking about Baron, 2, Crass, 3, Shipka, 4, me, and how I've used it and how I think it's good or bad, and how you might be able to use it or disagree with me. That is also good. Not smart, but good. But let's get into it. But first, let me catch up on what we're supposed to have read and get back to you, because I'm not quite sure I know what I'm talking about quite yet. Pencils to Pixels, man. I don't like it. There's a lot that might be interesting to other people, but not for me. It's pretty dry. It has like just a disconnect, I feel like, from real life. It's like it's a lecture as text, and I always find that to be quite boring. And I feel like it's quite irrelevant to go through the history of all these different forms of writing to actually just talk about computers and how they've advanced or changed how we write nowadays and look at writing. So I think in that way it takes away from, it's just pointless and just meant to make him sound smarter and know a bit about history in my mind. And when talking about different literacy, he's still using the same traditional approach to it through his text, so I feel like he still has a weak grasp on what he's trying to say. And quoting him, he even says that it is still too early to do significant speculating. So even he recognizes that he's not being able to fully say what he wants to say yet. And this is an old article, and you can tell by the background of this webpage that it's a little dated. But there is one thing that I thought was a pretty good idea that he says near the beginning. He says, because of the high cost of technology and general ignorance about it, practitioners keep it to themselves at first, either on purpose or because nobody else has any use for it. Then gradually they begin to mediate the technology for the general public. I think this is awesome because it totally relates to Shipka in the sense that, like you could introduce a new technology of teaching. It doesn't have to be electronics, and you could establish a new norm of a composition class where you have, yes, essay writing, but you also at the same time have like some composition using text messages, or like what does a key say about a person, and then you could show that through something, I don't know, just take real life things and express yourself differently than perhaps through an argumentative essay. But yeah, I don't know. Pencils and Pixels didn't have much for me besides those 2 points. Next to the other side. One last thing though, the picture at the end of the Pencils to Pixels article really upset me. The idea of students being monkeys, that's bad. The idea of assuming Macbeth is something that needs to be learned, I think that's also stupid. 3, the shortening of it into shorthand is bad. You might do disjustice to it, but I don't think it's bad. You get the idea. People read SparkNotes anyways. It's the same thing. So what's useful to a student versus what some scholar thinks is useful to school and education, I don't know if that's true, and it's upsetting to see that picture. But I also thought that Crass, the videos that he produced of that woman, I don't know, they seem so dry, boring, and just lacking information. I mean, I really didn't learn anything that I didn't already kind of know. I've taken rhetoric classes in the past, and essentially what he's saying is visual rhetoric. That's it. All the different components of it, the semiotics and all that jazz. It's just what he he's now putting multi-modality on it when text and images have always been together. And if you look at the text, it's just an image that we apply meaning to. So in that sense, I think a lot of what he's saying is just it's just empty words because it's already just out there in a different form. He's just put a different name on it. However, it's important in my mind. Not what he's necessarily saying, but the implications of what you can do with it. I think that actual application of multimodality helps people learn, and I think it's more fun for the teacher or the person providing content, and it has more active role in teaching than I think essays or PowerPoints can do. Although PowerPoints in a way are multimodal, but most of the time they're not executed well, and most students I feel like will tell you that they don't learn from them. It's usually the activities that are like given light through the PowerPoint, like, oh, here's this information and then let's do this activity to build on it. Just give us the activity. That's what students tend to enjoy more, I guess. At least I do. Yeah. Chris, I like what he's saying. He seems to know the like general information of what we should try to establish through multimodality, but I think it's more like you get your feet wet with what he says, and then you go explore. Because, I mean, there's only so much that you can learn from just listening to this guy's definitions about multimodality and mode, and like obviously a picture means something different to someone than text, and they're different modes, and you got to look at them differently, and that's pretty obvious, I feel like, and doesn't need much explaining, but he seems well established, but I don't know. Lastly, Shipka. Shipka, I feel like it's hard to also to always look at this camera. Just like speaking to someone, I also often feel like it's weird to look at someone in the eye the entire time. So I'm gonna look away. But Shipka. Speaking in a way is like writing, because you think when you speak, and by going Shipka, I'm helping myself think, and I just felt like I should share that. But Shipka, it's interesting, the idea of using different approaches to solve the things that we think is canon, I guess, in school. Using a project to represent an essay, I think that's interesting. Using info charts in essays and analysis of like behavior and stuff, I think is pretty cool. Peter's Kittle class, he used to have a big emphasis on multimodality, and we used to try and incorporate things. We'd do responses to questions he'd ask us about readings, and people would just make like a flow chart or infographic of like how they thought about certain things, and that would be acceptable. Or like me, I was pretty boring, and I put like 10 minutes into assignments and just write a little blurb, and he liked it just as much, and he seemed pretty engaged in responding to people. And I think that is where Shipka's method comes in the most use, is that it's the response, it's the feeling of like a group activity, I guess, because writing an essay, it's so simple but so hard, because you have to write. It's absolutely stupid, because you have to write for the teacher, and yet not write for the teacher and write in a formal tone, which is stupid, because you're just trying to prove to the teacher that you know what you're saying and you can support it through an argument, but they want you to be able to write it as if it was a job, as you're a scholar and you're working for a college, when, let's face it, we're English majors and that might not be what we're doing. So I think that if you take the multimodal approach and you actually put in some extra thought and creative thought into what you're doing, like, you'll have a better response from the teacher, but you also learn a lot from your peers. A ton of different cultures they use. Like in Japan, you don't respond to a teacher when they ask you a question. You ask your friends, you get approval by them, and then you respond. There's something that you learn from other students that you don't learn from the teacher, and doing the multimodal approach where you show it to everyone, I mean, there's a lot more to be learned through that, and it's a better learning experience, in my opinion. That being said, I don't think it's suited for every class. Obviously, there's some restrictions. I think it'd be fun for like one project. It seems like a lot of work to do in a semester, which makes it hard to do the entire class like that. But having one one assignment or maybe two that you're like, you can turn it in whenever you want. You just got to make it and make it good. And then tell me why you made it this way. I mean, I think that's pretty cool. And I think it'd be effective, and it helps students learn and be able to accept expressing themselves, because I feel like that's a thing that you don't learn in school, which would help people expand. Like, you don't have that sense of like total creativity in school, which is like what they want in the job market. Like, you need to be creative and express yourself and be good at doing that in order to like show your worth as an employee. But I go on a rant about how much I dislike how school works and how it's set up, but that's a different rant video, but it's relevant. Just as a side note, I was thinking during this whole assignment that you most of the time see vlogs, maybe chop up and like some different thing happens a lot during the video, and like bloggers or vloggers or whatever they're called, they'll usually edit their pieces so they're doing different things or their face moves a little bit. And you know, I always I don't like doing that, because I feel like it's more like personal if you just keep on going and you don't edit all your little clips and snip it out, because it shows your personality and your struggle through doing the vlog idea. But I guess it makes it cleaner and it makes it shorter, and I don't know, that is an interesting thing to look at in multi-modality. Like, not even the, like, if I made a text appear, I can do that. But like, just how you edit it, how you cut it, how you position yourself, how like I'm obeying the thirds rule right now, but I'm not when I'm over here, because I feel like it might be different for a vlog. I don't know. But multimodality, it's useful, and I think, in concluding words, that I think people should adapt it into their regular life and just have fun with it. I think it's a fun thing to do. You present yourself and your ideas in different ways, and oftentimes, and I feel like this should be viable, that it's easier in the sense of like a vlog, you can say things that you might not be able to write. It's a lot harder to write what you want to say and have it sound credible to an audience than just say it and like convince them, like, oh yeah, that makes sense, yeah, good job. And I don't know, I think that if you could argue an essay to a teacher in person and they're like, yeah, you're pretty good, I can't really argue against that, then you win and you should get a good grade, instead of like, oh, your argument didn't have a good transition, and yeah, you didn't expand on this quote enough, and you didn't fully convince me yet. It's like, I don't know. Anyways, that's what I have to say about multimodality. Cheers. Have a good weekend, everyone. And people that see this, please don't tell anybody else about this in our class. Hopefully just the teacher and maybe Destiny or Alyssa sees this.